I'm an old school liberal, but, you know, I'm not going to get on the crazy train with you. If you go someplace weird.
Did Bill Maher just go full MAGA? The left is stunned. Longtime liberal Bill Maher reportedly shocked Chris Cuomo by expressing opinions that sound awfully familiar to conservatives. Has Maher finally seen the light, or is something else going on? As a Republican, I have to say some of his recent statements are making a lot of sense. Let's unpack why this Democrat is leaving the crazy train and what it means for the political landscape.
And yes, the left has changed a lot, and the right has changed a lot, and even worse in many ways. So I'm just trying. I mean, I put out a book last year, and that was sort of the theme of the book. Was I went into my past, I looked, have I changed? And I really haven't. I mean, I quoted myself from a Playboy article I wrote in the 90s that was basically saying exactly what I'm saying today, which is I'm an old school liberal, but, you know, I'm not going to get on the crazy train with you. If you go someplace weird. I was saying to Maureen Dowd, she was here last week, that my parents, who loved your father, loved Kennedy. My father, very Irish, loved the Kennedys. I mean, been gone these 30-something years. I don't know where his politics would be. A dyed-in-the-wool Kennedy liberal Democrat, if he came back and saw some of the shit that was going on the left, and my Jewish mother, if she saw them chanting for Hamas, I can't guarantee they wouldn't be for Trump. They're World War II people. Mm-hmm. I can't get, that's not who they were, but so much has changed in 30 years. I mean, so, weird.
What gives you the most concern for our future?
All right, everyone. Now, Bill Maher, for those who might not know, has long been a fixture on the left. But lately, something interesting has been happening. And from what I've gathered, particularly in his conversation with Cuomo, it seems like the scales are starting to tip. The reports are calling it Bill Maher going full MAGA. Now, as a Republican, I might phrase it a little differently. I see it as Bill Maher recognizing a stark and unsettling shift within the Democratic Party and the broader left. He himself stated, I'm an old school liberal, but you know I'm not going to get on the crazy train with you if you go someplace weird. And that, my friends, resonates deeply with so many of us on the right. For years, conservatives have been pointing out what we see as radical shifts, the embrace of ideologies that seem increasingly out of touch with common sense and the values that built this nation. And now to hear someone like Bill Maher, a longtime voice on the left, express similar concerns, it's significant.
Like from The Graduate?
Like in my brain.
That you think we're poisoning ourselves?
Well, we definitely are. Really, that's not a joke answer.
That is what your biggest concern is?
Yeah.
That plastic has fucked us?
Fucked me. I don't care about you.
Thanks.
I mean, I don't want you to die from... Newsom is on my show Friday.
And?
I can't wait to ask him. But I still think, apropos of what I was just talking about with the plastic, they haven't really released, maybe they haven't found it, but I bet you they do, how toxic these sites are. I mean, after a fire, it's always a disaster. It looks like hell. But is it really a toxic site? I think this one probably is more, there are more toxic sites than we have so far been apprised. And that's one reason why they haven't started to rebuild, because they're toxic waste sites. So I think they got to get that cleaned up if they can. Maybe they can't. Maybe it's in the soil. Maybe the whole fucking Palisades is the Goonies.
But don't you think that they should be obsessed with how to do things differently? And you don't even hear them talking about it.
Well, you certainly hear Newsom talking about it. He said, he's just started this podcast. I'm sure you heard that. He said he was modeling it on what I do on Real Time. Mm-hmm. He said, I want to talk to other people. His first guest was Charlie Kirk, who could be not more be on the other side. Mm-hmm. I like this. I like the new Newsom. I've been asking for this Newsom for a long time. So I think he's a great candidate if he was more of a centrist Democrat, and he seems like he wants to be.
The sources highlight a few key areas where Maher's perspective seems to be diverging from the modern Democratic platform. Take his comments about those chanting for Hamas. As a conservative, the idea of American citizens siding with a terrorist organization that seeks the destruction of our ally, Israel, is frankly appalling. Maher's reported reaction and the sentiment that this kind of behavior pushes away people with actual common sense is something I wholeheartedly agree with. It's not about being a boomer conservative echoing talking points. It's about basic morality and understanding who our allies and adversaries are. This isn't about blindly supporting every action of any particular country in the Middle East. It's about recognizing the fundamental difference between a democratic ally and a terror group. And the fact that segments of the left seem to be confused on this point is deeply troubling and, as Maher suggests, alienating to many. Then there's the issue of political tribalism and the demonization of those with different viewpoints. The report mentions Maher's upcoming dinner with Donald Trump at the White House. The reaction to this, the sheer outrage some express at the idea of someone with differing political views even engaging in a civil dinner, is indicative of the hyper-polarized environment we're in. Maher himself seemed taken aback by the negative reactions, noting that people glide right past the idea that little Bill Maher was invited for a private dinner to the White House, and instead focus on how dare you talk to him. As conservatives, we've been on the receiving end of this kind of ideological purity test for years. If you dare to step outside the prescribed liberal orthodoxy, you're immediately labeled and ostracized. So to see someone like Maher, who has certainly been critical of the right in the past, now facing similar treatment from his own side for simply engaging in dialogue is eye-opening. It underscores the point that this isn't just a right-left issue. It's about the dangers of ideological extremism within any political movement.
It's great, and I can't wait till Friday and talk to him.
I can't wait to see what he says about what he's got working to make that not happen again when the fires come again.
Well, the whole thing is about this state is just so fucked with over taxes and over regulation.
Sure.
I mean, I last time he was on, I was, kidding him about the fact that I took 3 years to get my solar power turned on. Now I just had my roof redone because of the fires, because now I want a fireproof roof. 2 inspections, and you have to pay for those inspections, They're not free. And I asked this on the show last week. I see it got picked up by a lot of people. Why do I have to have inspectors looking at my roof? It's my roof. If it falls on my head, that's my problem. I don't need the government looking over my shoulder here. And this is why we can't get anything done in this state. The government is just too in our fucking business. And he was on last January, and I asked him about this and the red tape, and he had a big answer about, well, we're blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm going to find out what the exact blah, 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 blah was and see now that it's a year and 3 months later, what's been done. Because if it's nothing, that's not good enough.
It's hard for people in power to not use the power. And that's where regulation comes from. Some of it is obviously necessary.
They've got to cut the red tape. This is a blue state that runs completely on red tape.
Well, look, you can have a whole conversation with him about what he's doing with Medicaid. You guys give a lot of services to a lot of people who aren't legally in the state. And yes, you have a lot of people who are legal in the country, but you got stuff to talk about. Let me ask you this, last question. You're going to meet with the president.
I am.
The conversation also touches upon California and Governor Gavin Newsom. The sentiment expressed in the sources, even by someone who might be inclined to support Newsom, is one of frustration with the state's governance, particularly regarding overtaxation and overregulation. Maher's reported skepticism towards Newsom potentially rebranding himself as a centrist for political expediency also rings true for many conservatives. We've seen this playbook before. Politicians shifting their stances based on perceived political wins rather than genuine conviction. From a conservative perspective, the issues plaguing California, high taxes, stifling regulations, and what many see as a drift toward radical social policies are not new concerns. We've been arguing for years that these policies are detrimental to hear someone on the left like Maher express similar frustrations, even if focused on specific issues like rooftop inspections, reinforces the idea that these are not just partisan gripes, but real problems impacting the lives of everyday people.
What do you think has been the response so far? What do you think it will be, and why are you doing it? Which I'm totally for, by the way, and I love it.
I get it. Well, I'm doing it because, first of all, it was presented as
a dare.
not a dare. No, just like, maybe this is a beginning to heal America. Now, I don't have some sort of complex where I think I can heal America. I can't. Okay, let's get that clear. I'm not going to be healing America. But if two guys who've been at each other for so long, I mean, it's kind of a Nixon to China thing. I have the credentials. There was nobody who was harder on Trump or more prescient about the fact that he wasn't going to leave office voluntarily than I was. I feel like I have the credentials. But they also respect me because I'm honest about the woke train to crazy town. And I don't shrink from that. And I've also lost a lot of fans for that. The woke people have left the building, and I'm willing to make that sacrifice. But it does give you a certain credibility. So I just think to meet somebody, first of all, it's an honor to be invited to the White House.
Yes, it is.
And I've already had a couple of people who I said to them, you know, I'm just going to take it as a backhanded compliment that you glide right past the idea that little Bill Maher from Rivervale, New Jersey, just a humble kid from the suburbs, was invited for a private dinner to the White House. You glide right past that to how dare you talk to him, and that you're not impressed by it at all. I'm impressed by it a lot.
Now, the report suggests that Maher's willingness to meet with Trump and his criticisms of the left have led some to believe he's gone full MAGA. While I appreciate Maher acknowledging the honor of a White House invitation and voicing concerns about the direction of the Democratic Party, I wouldn't necessarily label it as a complete ideological conversion. What I see is someone who is willing to call out what he perceives as hypocrisy and extremism, regardless of which side of the political spectrum it originates from. And in today's political climate, that kind of intellectual honesty is sorely needed. As conservatives, we may not agree with Bill Maher on every issue, but his willingness to engage in uncomfortable conversations, to question the prevailing narratives within his own political sphere, and to acknowledge the validity of some conservative concerns is a positive development. It suggests that perhaps, just perhaps, some on the left are starting to recognize the unintended consequences of certain ideological trends. This isn't about gloating or saying, "I told you so." It's about hoping that more people, regardless of their political affiliation, will be willing to have honest and open discussions about the direction of our country. Bill Maher's conversation with Chris Cuomo, as reported, seems to have been a step in that direction. And for that, I believe it deserves attention and further discussion. We need more voices willing to challenge the status quo, to step outside the echo chambers, and to engage with those who hold different perspectives. Whether you agree with everything Bill Maher said or not, the fact that his views reportedly shocked Chris Cuomo suggests that he touched upon some uncomfortable truths that deserve a wider audience. So what are your thoughts? Do you see Bill Maher's comments as a significant shift? Are you encouraged by the idea of people on different sides of the political spectrum finding common ground on certain issues? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for tuning in to the Black Coffee Podcast. We'll be back next week with more discussions that matter. Until then, stay informed and keep thinking critically.